Welcome back to St Thomas Aquinas for everyone. I'm Dave Palmer, and we are in a new section of the Summa now, and this is about the sacraments, and we are getting very close to the end of the Summa. We really just have the sacraments, and then the last things of judgment, death, judgment, heaven, and hell, and some other things having to do with glorified bodies and some interesting things at the end of the Summa. The sacraments are very important because remember when we started the Summa, we learned in the very first article that our end is supernatural. Heaven is supernatural. God, of course, is supernatural. And so we are created for an end that we cannot achieve on our own. And so God has to help us. He does it through sacred doctrine, which was the first, question of the Summa. And now as we get towards the end, we learn that the ordinary means by which we get to heaven is through grace, and the ordinary means of grace is the sacraments. And so it's sometimes something that's so common when we think of baptism, and especially the Eucharist and confession, that we really don't understand what exactly it's all about. I think we may know it in our head, but do we think about it? Do we celebrate the awesomeness of what God has done in allowing us to receive sacraments literally daily if we want to? Some of them only once in our life. And by the way, we will go over all the sacraments one by one and in future videos. But this is kind of an introductory video about the sacraments and what they are all about. So let's get right to it. And here it is. And the first article that we're going to talk about is from Tertia Pars, third part, question 60, article 4. And Thomas says whether a sacrament is always something sensible. And by sensible, of course, we mean it has to do with the senses, whether it be our sight or hearing or taste or smell, touch, right? It has something to do that with our senses. And why is that the case? Remember when we learned about the way that we come to know things, we learned about that interesting concept called the passive intellect and the active intellect, which means that we have the capacity to know all things through our passive intellect, right? Our active intellect actually goes out and comes to know things, but it does so by abstracting phantasms from physical objects, okay? So we know everything that we know through physical objects. Even something like love, which is abstract and intangible, we know it through expressions of love, through hugs and through acts of charity, okay? The reason I put that picture up there of the baby and the dog is that we don't know what a dog is unless we experience a dog. We see a dog, okay? That's how we come to know things, and that's what Thomas is getting at. He says, divine wisdom provides for each thing according to its mode, okay? One of my favorite verses of Scripture says in Wisdom 8:1 that she ordereth all things sweetly, wherefore also we are told that she gave to everyone according to his proper ability. Now it is part of man's nature to acquire knowledge of the intelligible from the sensible, but a sign is that by means of which one attains to the knowledge of something else. Consequently, since the sacred things which are signified by the sacraments are the spiritual and intelligible goods by means of which man is sanctified, it follows that the sacramental signs consist in sensible things, just as the divine scriptures spiritual things are set before us under the guise of things sensible, and hence it is that sensible things are required for the sacraments. Okay, so let me just explain that a little bit better. And it's the way we're created, right? She ordereth all things sweetly. That means that God provides for each creature, including the human being, with that which it needs in order to achieve its end. Okay, birds have wings, and the beavers are able to gnaw on wood to build a dam. Okay, if something is through its nature supposed to do something or accomplish something, God gives it the tools necessary to achieve that end, and that's really what this is all about. So let's go on to the next article of that we're talking about. Are determinate words necessary? So now we've talked about the matter, the things that we can approach with our senses. Now, are words necessary for the sacraments? And you might remember when we talked about form and matter, coming to know things, epistemology. When I say the word cat, an image comes in your mind because you've experienced a cat or dog or spaceship or cantaloupe, right? When I say these words, a phantasm comes to your mind because you've experienced it physically. That's the only way that you can come to know these things. And so with the sacraments, like in baptism, it's the words that mean something, okay? In the sacraments, the words are as the form, and sensible things are the matter. Now, in all things composed of matter and form, the determining principle is in the part of the form, which is, as it were, the end and the terminus of the matter. Consequently, for the being of a thing, the need of a determinate form is prior to the need of a determinate matter. For determinate matter is needed that it may be adapted to the determinate form, since therefore in the sacraments determinate sensible things are required, which are the sacramental matter, much more is there need in them of a determinate form of words. All right, so just like the form of that cat is what we would call catness, okay, whatever the essence is of a cat and all that comes with it, that's its form. That's what it is. The fur and the teeth and the skin, that's matter. Okay, that's part of it, but really what defines it is the form. Okay, so in every sacrament, we're going to have determinate words that really make the sacrament what it is. All right, so hopefully you're following this and it's making sense. Let's move on to the next one. Are sacraments necessary for salvation? I put some pictures up here of things that, ask the question, what is necessary for life? The guy up there at the top left is breathing. That's necessary for life. To eat, to sleep, to exercise, not really. You don't have to, but it certainly helps. To be loved, like that baby, not absolutely necessary. You don't have to be loved, but it certainly helps out a lot, doesn't it? So Thomas says sacraments are necessary unto man's salvation for three reasons. The first is taken from the condition of human nature, which is such that it has to be led by things corporeal and sensible to things spiritual and intelligible. Now it belongs to divine providence to provide for each one according as its condition requires. Divine wisdom, therefore, fittingly provides man with means of salvation in the shape of corporeal and sensible signs that are called sacraments. Okay, that's kind of a review of what we just talked about a moment ago. The second reason is taken from the state of man who in sinning subjected himself by his affection to corporeal things. Now the healing remedy should be given to a man so as to reach the part affected by disease. Consequently, it was fitting that God should provide man with a spiritual medicine by means of certain corporeal signs. For if man were offered spiritual things without avail, his mind, being taken up with the material world, would be unable to apply them well. This is where we get into the fact that here below on earth, we can't totally understand the essence of God. Okay, we'll never totally comprehend him, even in heaven, but in heaven we'll be able to, because we won't be as dependent on the physical. We don't understand angels. Okay, we represent them with little wings and little cherubs, but we don't understand them because they're entirely spiritual. They're incorporeal, and so incorporeal things are hard for us to understand because we come to know things through the sensible. All right, so there's one more thing here. It follows, therefore, that through the institution of the sacraments, man, consistently with his nature, is instructed through sensible things. He is humbled through confessing that he is subject to corporeal things, seeing that he receives assistance through them, and he is even preserved from bodily hurt by the healthy exercise of the sacraments. Okay, so now we get to the final article that we're going to be talking about in this video, and has to do with the primary effect of the sacraments is that we receive grace. What is grace? A participation in the life of God. That's what we receive. That's why I think anytime we receive the Eucharist, anytime we receive confession, I think sometimes it gets very routine. Do we really understand what's going on? That's why I think as we start to wrap up the Summa, Thomas is, reaching a crescendo here, of course, with Jesus Christ, his passion, death, resurrection. But then when he left with us, left us a church that is able to give us the sacraments. So, okay, whether there be in the sacraments a power of causing grace. So when this man receives absolution for his sins, is something happening? Is that sacrament actually effective? Is it effectual? Is it imparting something? Is it just words and that hands being laid on him, right? Those who hold that the sacraments do not cause grace save by a certain coincidence deny the sacraments any power that is itself productive of the sacramental effect, and hold that divine power assists the sacraments and produces their effect. But if we hold that a sacrament is an instrumental cause of grace, we must needs allow that there is in the sacraments a certain instrumental power of bringing about the sacramental effects. Now, such power is proportionate to the instrument, and consequently it stands in comparison to the complete and perfect power of anything as the instrument to the principal agent. For an instrument does not work save as moved by the principal agent, which works of itself, and therefore the power of the principal agent exists in nature completely and perfectly, whereas the instrumental power has a being that passes from one thing into another and is incomplete, just as motion is an imperfect act passing from agent to patient. All right, so what does all that mean? He's saying that obviously the cause of grace is God himself. But God uses instruments. God uses the material world. God uses words. And that's a whole another topic, because the Word of God is the second person of the Blessed Trinity, right? Words are very important. But these words and this matter in this form, when it comes together as a sacrament, is effective as an instrument of providing grace from God through the instrument, and of course the minister of the sacrament as well. Okay, so hopefully that was a help to you. Hopefully you understand better about the sacraments, the grace, the fact that there is matter, there is form. The matter is the physical part. The form are the words that are spoken, like at the consecration or baptism or confirmation. Words are spoken. And anyways, thank you for watching. And we've got one more general video on the sacraments, and then we're going to get into baptism and confirmation together. The Eucharist will be by itself, and then we're going to have the other 4 sacraments kind of lumped together. All right, so thank you so much. Hope you enjoy it. Comment, and if you have any questions, please leave them in the comment section of the video. God bless you.